All right, let's dive in. We're taking a deep dive today into Genesis Rewired, Unmasking Divine Myths Through the Science of Reproduction and Gender.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it's pretty much what it sounds like, challenging those traditional ways we look at Genesis, especially the whole creation of Eve thing and that strict gender binary idea.
Yeah, for sure.
So we've got some pretty thought-provoking excerpts from the book, like really blending science and religious texts.
That's always an interesting mix.
Yeah, for sure. And the book doesn't waste any time. Like, right away, it jumps into those misconceptions we've all heard.
Oh, like what?
Like that whole extra rib myth.
Oh, yeah, right.
That women have an extra rib because Eve came from Adam's rib.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
But anatomically speaking, it's
Okay.
just not true.
Nope, not at all.
Like, you look at Grey's Anatomy, any standard anatomy book,
Right.
men and women, they both have 12 pairs of ribs.
24 total.
Yeah, 24 total.
Yeah.
It's wild how misinformation spreads like that.
It really is.
But Genesis Rewired goes deeper, looks at the original Hebrew.
Mhm.
And the word that's often translated as rib, it can also mean like side
Oh, interesting.
or part.
Yeah.
So it could be more metaphorical.
Makes you think. Right.
Yeah, right. Like maybe it's not about a literal bone, but more about Eve being like formed from Adam's essence.
Yeah, their being.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So it's not just about taking something away from Adam, but about a deeper connection.
A different way to see it.
Totally. And then the book takes it even further.
Oh, how so?
It brings in science, modern science, specifically genetics.
Okay, yeah.
When you look at how sex is determined, things are, well, clear. Females, 2 X chromosomes, right?
Right.
Males, 1 X and 1 Y.
Yeah.
So the baby's sex, it all depends on which chromosome comes from the father's sperm.
That little sperm carrying either an X or a Y.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
all about that, chance encounter of chromosomes.
That's a good way to put it.
And the book points out that, like, scientifically speaking, parthenogenesis,
Oh. Yeah.
the idea of a woman, conceiving a male child without any male genetic input.
Without that Y chromosome.
Yeah, without the Y, it's impossible.
Yeah. At least as far as we know right now.
Right.
With our current understanding of biology. Anyway.
Yeah. Who knows what the future holds?
Right.
But Genesis Rewired, it's really making us rethink those traditional narratives.
It is. It's asking some tough questions.
But what about cloning? I mean, we've come a long way with that, haven't we?
We have. It's fascinating stuff.
Couldn't cloning, like, blur the lines a bit?
Well, even in cloning, the sex of the clone, it's determined by the donor's DNA.
Oh.
A clone from a male cell is going to be genetically male.
So, no switching things up there?
Not really, no.
But could we, like, theoretically manipulate the sex with all this gene editing and CRISPR and all that?
Ah, CRISPR-Cas9.
Yeah, is that even possible?
That's where it gets really speculative.
Oh.
Like, maybe someday we could use CRISPR to, I don't know, inactivate the SRY gene.
That's the one that triggers male development, right?
Yeah, that's the one. And then maybe introduce another X chromosome, but we're nowhere near that yet.
Oh, okay.
And honestly, it brings up a whole bunch of ethical questions we haven't even begun to answer.
It's like science fiction becoming reality.
It really is.
But Genesis Rewired also talks about intersex conditions,
Oh, right.
which I'll admit I'm not totally clear on.
Well, think of it this way. Nature, it loves variety, right?
Mm-hmm.
And intersex conditions are basically variations in sexual development,
Okay.
where someone's anatomy doesn't fit neatly into male or female, and it happens more than people think.
So it's not just about, like, what you see on the outside.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
There are different conditions, each with its own, characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
Take androgen insensitivity syndrome, or AIS.
Okay.
They have XY chromosomes, what we usually associate with males, but their bodies don't respond to androgens, the male hormones. So they might develop female physical traits, even though they have XY chromosomes.
Wow. That's pretty complex.
It is.
So the whole idea of a clear-cut binary,
Yeah,
it kind of falls apart.
it does.
And then there's congenital adrenal hyperplasia,
Right.
CAH.
Right.
That's where individuals with XX chromosomes, usually associated with females, are exposed to higher levels of androgens during fetal development.
Oh, wow.
And that can lead to, like, masculinized genitalia.
Yeah, it's a spectrum.
It really is. Like, nature itself is saying, hey, there's more to this than just male and female.
That's one of the things Genesis Rewired really highlights.
Yeah.
Challenging that strict binary, suggesting that biological sex is more nuanced than we might think.
And then that leads to the question of transgender identity.
Right, where does that fit in?
Exactly. And that's something I've always wondered about. Is
Mm-hmm.
being transgender similar to being intersex?
That's a common thought, but they're actually different concepts.
Okay.
Transgender identity is all about someone's internal sense of gender.
Okay.
It doesn't match the sex they were assigned at birth.
So it's not about the physical body.
No, it's about how someone feels inside.
That makes sense.
So someone could be born with, typical male anatomy, but identify as female.
Right, or the other way around.
Exactly.
And that's separate from any physical variation.
Completely separate.
It's about that distinction between sex and gender.
Exactly.
Sex is biological and gender is like more about social and cultural stuff.
You got it.
Genesis Rewired ties all this together, challenging how we look at the Bible,
Yeah.
bringing in modern science.
That modern understanding.
But it makes you wonder if there's anything in the Bible itself that, supports a more fluid view of gender.
It's a good question.
Is there?
Well, the book actually looks into that.
Really?
And there are a few passages that some scholars see as more inclusive.
Oh, wow. I'd love to hear about those.
One example is in Matthew 19.12, where Jesus talks about eunuchs. Now, historically, eunuch meant, castrated man.
Right.
But some scholars think that in this context, it could include people who don't fit into male or female categories.
That's interesting.
It is.
Are there other passages like that?
Yeah, there's Isaiah 56.3-5.
Okay.
It talks about eunuchs being welcomed in God's house and receiving blessings. Some see that as a sign of inclusivity, for those who don't conform to traditional gender roles.
So maybe the Bible, when you look at it with a modern lens,
Yeah.
it's more open to gender diversity than we think.
That's exactly what Genesis Rewired is saying.
It's pretty amazing.
It is.
We're really rethinking things here.
We are.
And we've only just started. Can't wait to see what else we uncover as we keep diving into Genesis Rewired.
There's a lot more to come, that's for sure.
All right, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back with more of this deep dive into Genesis Rewired.
Sounds good.
Genesis Rewired really makes you think about gender and creation in a whole new way.
It's a fascinating perspective.
But what about those biblical stories that, kind of clash with science?
Oh, I see what you mean.
Like the virgin birth.
Yeah.
That one's always been hard to, reconcile with biology.
It's definitely a concept that challenges our understanding of natural processes.
Yeah, because scientifically you need,
You need both. Right?
both male and female to make a baby.
You need that sperm and egg to fuse to get a viable embryo.
So, a virgin birth in humans.
Hmm.
It's just not possible.
Based on what we know now about biology, yeah, it wouldn't be possible.
But Genesis Rewired reminds us that ancient texts, they often use symbolic language.
Right. They weren't always meant to be taken literally.
So maybe the virgin birth, it's more about a deeper meaning?
A theological message rather than a biological play-by-play.
That makes sense.
It's about faith, not necessarily a scientific explanation.
But what about, animals that reproduce without fertilization?
Oh, you mean parthenogenesis?
Yeah, parthenogenesis, that's the word.
It's a real thing. It happens in some species.
Oh, so it does happen.
Yeah, certain reptiles, insects, even some fish can do it.
Interesting.
It's pretty amazing, actually.
So it works for them, but not humans.
Not naturally, no.
But couldn't science, figure out a way to make it happen in mammals?
It's a possibility, but there are big biological hurdles.
Like what?
Well, we talked about chromosomes and how they determine sex.
Right.
But there's also something called genomic imprinting,
Okay.
where certain genes, they act differently depending on whether they came from the mother or the father.
Oh, I see.
And you need both those maternal and paternal imprints for normal development.
So an embryo from parthenogenesis
Yeah.
with only genes from the mother?
It wouldn't be viable.
Oh, okay.
Scientists have tried to induce parthenogenesis in mammals,
Yeah.
but those embryos,
Yeah.
they don't develop properly.
So the virgin birth, it stays in the realm of faith for now,
That's right.
not science.
Yeah, anyway.
But Genesis Rewired doesn't, dismiss its significance.
No, not at all.
It recognizes that whether you take it literally or symbolically, it has deep meaning in the Christian faith.
It speaks to that idea of the divine, interacting with humanity.
In a way that we may not fully grasp. Maybe
Yeah.
there are things beyond our current understanding.
Mysteries we may never fully solve.
And that's okay, right?
That's okay.
Genesis Rewired makes a good point that science and religion, they don't have to be enemies.
Yeah, they offer different ways of looking at the world.
Like two sides of the same coin?
Science explores the how, and religion grapples with the why.
I like that.
It's about recognizing that there are different paths to knowledge.
And sometimes just accepting the mystery is just as important as finding all the answers.
I agree.
Which brings us to something Genesis Rewired talks about, the human condition in this information age.
Oh, right. It's a whole new world.
Yeah, we're constantly bombarded with data, rethinking what we thought we knew.
It's a time of massive change.
It feels like the ground is shifting under our feet.
Yeah, with the internet, social media, everything's so accessible.
And it's not just about access, it's about who controls the narrative.
That's a good point.
Like in the past, it was often religious leaders who decided what was true.
The authorities, yeah.
But now, with the digital age, knowledge is, well, it's democratized.
It's more open, for sure.
Think about the LGBTQ plus community.
Yeah.
They have a voice now. They can share their stories, challenge those old narratives that kept them silent.
They're not being silenced anymore.
Exactly. The internet has given them a platform.
A global platform.
To talk about gender identity, to challenge the binary, to promote a more inclusive view of what it means to be human.
It's been a powerful shift.
And Genesis Rewired highlights how science plays a role in that.
Science and personal experience coming together.
Yeah, like science is saying, here's what we're seeing.
And people are saying, here's what it means to me.
It's a powerful combination.
It really is.
It's driving real change.
So what do you think is the big takeaway here?
I think Genesis Rewired is saying that human identity, it's complex, it's dynamic.
It goes beyond simple categories.
Yeah, the old models, the labels, they just don't work anymore.
I agree. And this goes beyond just gender.
Right.
Race, religion, culture, the whole human experience.
It's a tapestry with so many threads.
To really understand ourselves and the world, we need to embrace that complexity.
And see diversity as a strength, not something to be afraid of.
Celebrate the full spectrum of what it means to be human.
And let go of the need for easy answers.
Embrace the mystery.
Knowing that what we think is true today might change tomorrow.
That's the nature of knowledge.
This deep dive into Genesis Rewired, it's been eye-opening.
It's been a good conversation.
I feel like I've still got so much to learn.
There's always more to explore.
It's inspiring to see how science and spirituality can, not just coexist, but actually work together.
It speaks to our curiosity, our compassion, that desire to understand the mysteries of existence.
We've covered a lot, but there's still more to unpack.
There's always more.
I'm ready for more.
What aspects of Genesis Rewired do you want to look at next?
Well, in the final part of our deep dive,
Yes.
we'll explore those ethical and societal implications.
It's big picture stuff.
Yeah, how this understanding of human identity impacts things like social policy, healthcare, how we treat each other.
And the challenges and opportunities that come with rewriting the narrative of what it means to be human.
So Genesis Rewired has really made us rethink gender and creation, but it makes you think about the bigger picture, How does all this affect society?
It's a great question.
What does it mean for, our everyday lives?
Well, the book gets into that in the later chapters.
Okay.
This new understanding of human identity.
Yeah.
It has big implications. It affects everything, our social structures, even our personal relationships.
So where do we even start with all that?
The book makes a point that with any big shift in understanding, you get both challenges and opportunities.
Right.
Progress. It's not always a straight line.
Makes sense. So what are some of those challenges? What does Genesis Rewired say?
One of the biggest is making sure that scientific advancements are used ethically, responsibly.
That's a good point.
We're learning so much about genetics and reproductive technology.
They're moving so fast.
We have to be careful not to misuse that power.
It's like we're in uncharted territory, right?
It is.
We can manipulate life in ways we never could before.
And that's a bit scary, honestly.
It is.
Genesis Rewired cautions against letting the tech get ahead of our ethics. Remember those theoretical possibilities we talked about?
They're manipulating the sex of a clone.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
That kind of power, it raises some serious questions.
It's like blurring the line between science fiction and reality.
It really is.
But Genesis Rewired also talks about the ethical side of how we treat people who don't fit those traditional gender norms.
Absolutely.
The LGBTQ plus community has faced so much discrimination.
So much prejudice.
And a lot of it is rooted in, outdated interpretations of religious texts.
Yeah, using those beliefs to justify mistreatment, denying basic human rights.
It's just not right.
Genesis Rewired challenges us to move past those harmful ideologies, to create a society where everyone feels safe, respected, value.
No matter how they identify.
Exactly, regardless of their gender identity or expression.
I like that.
It's a vision that resonates with the book's message of embracing diversity.
Seeing the dignity in every person.
And to get there,
Yeah.
Genesis Rewired suggests we need some pretty big societal changes.
Like what?
Our education systems need to change.
Okay.
We need to move past that oversimplified binary.
Male and female.
Yeah, the one that's been ingrained in our culture for so long.
So ingrained, yeah.
Imagine teaching kids about the spectrum of gender identity from a young age.
Oh, wow.
What kind of impact would that have?
That would be huge, helping them understand themselves and others better.
It's about creating a generation that's more accepting, more understanding of differences.
And it goes beyond education, right?
It does.
Genesis Rewired talks about healthcare needing to adapt, too.
We need healthcare professionals who are sensitive to the needs of transgender and intersex individuals.
Oh, right.
Doctors who are knowledgeable, who can provide culturally competent care.
Making sure everyone has access to good healthcare no matter how they identify.
Exactly.
And feeling seen and heard by their doctors.
That's so important.
And then there's the workplace.
Oh, yeah.
Genesis Rewired talks about creating work environments that are welcoming to all genders.
It's more than just policies, right?
It's about the culture, making it a place where everyone can be themselves.
Valuing diversity, recognizing that different perspectives make us stronger, more innovative.
It's exciting to think about a society that really embraces those principles.
It is.
Inclusion, equity.
But Genesis Rewired is realistic.
Okay.
Getting there, it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, I can see that.
We need to change how we think about gender.
Deeply ingrained stuff.
Genesis Rewired emphasizes dialogue, listening to the stories of those who've been marginalized,
Letting those voices be heard.
challenging our own biases,
And being allies, right.
standing up for those who are discriminated against.
Pushing for change.
This has been quite the deep dive.
It really has. Genesis Rewired has given me so much to think about.
I'm glad.
It's challenged me to think differently about gender and creation.
It's been a great conversation.
It's amazing how the book brings together science and religion and ethics and social commentary.
It's a powerful
It
combination.
makes you think outside the box.
It really pushes the boundaries.
I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
That's how these deep dives go.
But I'm so glad we did this.
Me too.
Thanks for joining us on this journey.
It's been a pleasure.
And remember, the conversation doesn't end here.
Keep exploring
Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep pushing for a more inclusive world.
a more compassionate world.
Thanks for listening.
Until next time.